the Buddha. It's a title. It's not his name. His name was Siddhartha, yeah? He came from, the Shakya clan, yeah? And from what we gather from earliest accounts, immediately I'm ignoring my notes. Who's got a spoon in their teacup? Sorry, that drives me mad. Just take the spoon out, yeah? Ching, ching, ching. Yes, he was from the Shakyan clan, a sort of a warrior caste, but there's accounts of his father, him seeing his father's men sort of ploughing the fields and things like that. His father probably an elected leader of the clan for that time, you know. It was sort of a republic. The accounts of the Buddha, the earliest ones are really basic. They're really simple. And then, of course, Indians like to embellish. And later on, you get, well, I'll give one of sort of the medium accounts, you know, the ones that comes a little bit later. But later on, you get the Lalitavistara Sutta. It's the play, the sports of the Buddha, and it's this whole convoluted tale of him, his childhood and everything. Obviously, it's all been invented, yeah? And a friend of mine, Sagramati, who's a really great scholar, and studies the Pali Canon, where we get most of our material from, he says, please read the Pali Canon, and it's huge, it's massive. There's so many volumes in it. The life of the Buddha and the sort of the rules. He said, read it as literature. You know, and I mean, today I have little bits of Shakespeare memorized. They're so useful. Little bits of Shakespeare, you know, neither a lender nor a borrower be. You know, when you've tested your friend and he's true, bind him to your breast with hoops of steel. This is Shakespeare. And similarly with the teachings of the Buddha, the stuff in there which is pure gold and the stuff in there which is pure fiction, you know. We can't, when you can sort of tell, you can, sometimes there's a little bit comes through. There's one text where this king is praising the Buddha. This is not in the talk. He's praising the Buddha. He said, the way your assembly are so quiet when you speak to the monks, not a sound. He said, you know, I am king. I can execute them all. But they talk when I'm talking. I say, please don't talk while I'm talking. They keep talking. Yeah? But you, silence. He said once, he said, I saw a monk clear his throat and another monk stuck his knee in his back and said, quiet, the Lord is speaking. And that knee in the back, I believe it. It's traveled 2,500 years. It works for me, you know. So, but you have to be a bit of a Sherlock Holmes to have a little look, yeah? So the Buddha, it's a title. He was a bloke. He was born 2,500 years ago in a place called Lumbini, northeast India, up near the Himalayas, foothills of the Himalayas, near the town of Kapilavastu. This means nothing to me. Sorry, I've been to India a few times, but I don't know this area. When he was born, a seer, a wise man saw him and burst into tears. He said, I'll never see him mature, you know, because the old wise man was so old. He said, he will either be a world leader or a very spiritual person, you know, a spiritual great, yeah? He will be one of the two. And this is in the later tales. The father, Shakyamuni's father, hears this. And in some of the tales, they're so embellished that Siddhartha has 3 palaces for the 3 seasons. One for the rainy season, one for the hot season, one for the dry season, yeah? 3 palaces. The stories grow fantastically, yeah? It's got dancing girls, musicians. It's a fantastic life, yeah? It's growing a bit. The earlier versions, his dad is ploughing the field, you know, all right? But in this embellished version, the king, when he hears that his son could become a great spiritual leader, yeah? He says, all right, let him not see suffering. We'll hide suffering from him. He'll live in the palaces, yeah? When he goes out in the chariot, we'll get all the sick and old people hidden. He'll just see lovely, young, beautiful people all the time, yeah? God, there must be places like that, I'm sure, in America. Anyway, let it be. This place is a bit like that. But anyway, And it's myth. and the story says that, but one day, a sort of a deva comes down, and he's off on his chariot run, and they send out an old man, and young Siddhartha goes, "Oh, what's that?" He says, "It's an old man." "What do you mean an old man?" He said, "It's a person who became old." He says, "That's horrible." He says, "Does that happen to everybody?" He goes, "Yes." He says, "To me?" He goes, "Yes." And he says, "The intoxication of youth left him." He sobered up. Yeah. Then on another round, he sees a sick man. "What's that? A sick man? Does that happen to you?" "Yes, yes." "Will it happen to me?" "Yes." Then he sees a funeral go past. And of course in India, the body would be bouncing along on top of the crowd. Yeah. And what is this? It is death. Does that happen to everyone? And suddenly, he is destroyed. It turns out, I was reading Vishvapani's account of the life of the Buddha. That story, it didn't happen. Yeah. And Vishvapani says, in some of the later suttas, it's the Buddha who tells that tale about somebody else. Yeah? It's not the Buddha's story. The Buddha tells it, but it's about another person. Yeah? They went through these sites. Yeah? And but actually, sometimes you need fable and poetry to tell the truth. Yeah? Because the truth is, he got depressed. He just looked at life and went, is that it? Is this what happens? I get a beautiful woman, she gets old. I get children, they hate me. Yeah? How common is that? Is this it? And disillusionment comes in, but it's told in a fable, and so the fable has truth, though the details may not be so. So there we go, yeah? But then there's a fourth sight, and this is quite interesting. He sees a man walking along in yellow robes with a bowl and shaven head. He says, "What's this?" He looks good. He says, "That is a wandering mendicant. He's gone seeking the truth." And it's a vision, and it's an option, Yeah. And it's interesting that this happens many times in our own world. You see somebody who inspires you and think, that's a possible way. I could go that way. So that's the fourth sight. And what it does tell us is that the yellow robe, the shaven head, was not Buddhism. It was there before Buddhism. It was like a uniform. I've gone forth. Yeah? There was an earth. You could make mud from the earth, rub your clothes in it, they become yellow. It's the uniform. Today, well, in England, it's Oxfam, isn't it? But, sorry, it's a little private joke. But then, that's second-hand clothing, like Humana, yeah? But then it was the dyed robes, the shaven head, you go forth. And society respected it. India was quite wealthy. There was civilization, there were kings, there were kingdoms, there were cities, Okay, it got very hot, but there was crops, it was an abundant time, food stores. It's a fantastic time. There's lots of people seeking the truth. Fire worshippers, ascetics, people holding their hand up in the air forever until it dies, literally, keep their hand up there for 15 years, and it's now a withered thing that won't come down, This is what they did. There's people who imitated dogs, people who imitated cows, and lived as a cow or as a dog. But they're all seeking the truth. India is interesting. And according to Sangharakshita, he said, when you met somebody in those days, you didn't say, "Oh, what do you do?" "I'm an accountant." No, you said, "Who is your teacher?" This was the question. Who is your teacher? It's very different. And you see that in the Pali Canon a number of times, yeah? So, we won't go into the great details, but he goes forth, breaks his parents' heart. Oh, and he has got a young wife and a child. Ooh, controversial. Yeah, he left them. It's quite possible there's no such thing. He didn't have a wife and child. It's quite possible. Some scholars suggest that it was later invented because it is such a terrible thing for a young man or woman to go forth looking for the truth and not leave the family with an heir. Somebody to carry on the family. That is so criminal that it's better to create this little story that he left a wife and child behind. That's better. Yeah? Okay. Different culture, yes. So there we go. So he goes seeking, and he comes across, he finds a meditation teacher, Alara Kalama. Alara Kalama, really hot. He's got a whole following. He teaches him meditation, and he takes him. Now, we call them the dhyānas, the superconscious states. These all of us here, some of us were there today. I know that, you can feel it in the room. Some of people are going into the first, maybe second dhyāna. Yeah, I won't ask for acknowledgement. I know who it was. Sorry, they just laughed. But the dhyānas are there. They're superconscious states. There's 8 in the list, and they're quite remarkable. And the first one is amazing. To be in the first dhyāna is very, very nice. You've gone to heaven. You are psychologically an angel. Yeah, you're integrated. You're well. You're happy. It's nice. Yeah, they don't last. Sad. But it's very. So that's the first dhyāna. They go all the way up, and Alara Kalama has got up to number 7. Yes. The realm of no thingness. And Ayakema, her ashes are here in Berlin. I really respect Ayakema's teaching on meditation, German woman. She said, she's describing the 8 dhyānas, and she says, the no thingness, she says, in meditation you see that there are no things. Well, this is modern physics. Everything is process. Everything. But you see that in the 7th dhyāna. She said, very useful for seeing what reality's like. It's all on the move. It's all process. Yeah? Lovely. There are no things. Good. So that's the 7th. And he masters it. Alara Kalama says, will you join me in leading this band of disciples? And Siddhartha goes, no, it's not ultimate. This isn't it. It's got to be more than this. There's still, disease, death, old age. This isn't it. So he leaves. And then he finds another teacher, Udraka Ramaputra. And he can take him up to the 8th one. Yeah? The realm of neither perception nor non-perception. Woo. And I love Ayakema. She's describing them all. When she gets to neither perception nor non-perception, and she says, you can't describe this one. She said, but what she will say is, when you've been there, you come back with tons of energy. Tons of energy. And in a way, I've said this before, that's the Buddhist practice. You go up the dhyānas, get tons of amazing energy, come down, and then reflect on the nature of reality. We're not going to go there today, all right? But that's what you do. Up, down, reflect. Nice. Good. Yeah, good. So, all right. He's offered the leadership. No, thank you. This is not ultimate. Off he goes again. And he becomes an ascetic. And now India is hot. Where are we? May. At the moment, India will be so hot, the roads will be breaking up, and they'll be split. Yeah, the grass is brown. I did go there a few times, not so long ago, and at this time of year, you see some of the roads. Buses have driven over the roads, and they've churned up the mud. Yeah, and then the sun is here, and all that mud is now baked solid. And it's like walking over a wavy ocean. It's crazy. You think, what is going on? These roads go up and down, you break your ankle, yeah? I even saw a little tuk-tuk, the little 3-wheeler by one of these roads, on its side. It didn't make it, Like a little beetle, pick it up and put it back on its wheels, But there we go. That's the Germans who have the beetle, isn't it? But there we go. So India is hot, and he would sit there in the midday sun with fires around him. I mean, this kills people, torturing himself. He would not eat a grain of rice a day for months, for years. All sorts of horrible practices. And the idea was, if I could just master the body, the mind would be free. So that's what they're sort of thinking, yeah? Free the mind through mastering the body. And he became famous. He did it for 6 years. He had a following. He was the most famous. And he said of himself, I went further than anybody else with self-torture. Yeah? Good. So there he is, famous. And he realizes he's learnt nothing. Absolutely nothing. All this practice. And he gets so thin. Oh, sorry, I wrote it down. Can I just read a little bit from the Pali Canon? He said, all my limbs became like knotted joints of withered creepers, my buttocks like a bullock's hoof, my protruding backbone like a string of balls, my gaunt ribs like the crazy rafters of a tumble-down shed. My eyes lay deep in their sockets, their pupils sparkling like water in a deep well. As an unripe gourd shrivels and shrinks in a hot wind, so my scalp, So it became his scalp. I thought, if I touch my belly, it was the skin of his back, he felt, yeah? If he touched his back, he could feel his belly. He said the hairs fell out, rotting at the roots, and he realized he was dying. Is that the point of death? And at Bodh Gaya, we went out, there's a cave you can go and visit where the Buddha stayed, in this little cave, and you have to climb down and crawl into it. And there they got a statue of a starving Buddha. He's not a Buddha yet, starving man with all the ribs, sitting there in the dark, yeah? And there's two young Brahmins with a huge catch box going. And our guide said, don't put money in. I saw the Japanese. They would have had a European wage in India. They were creaming in. These two young Brahmins, the money going into this box was amazing. You know, I wouldn't put anything in. No way. But, but you could see there where the Buddha actually meditated, or Shakyamuni, you know, in this cave. So there we go. And he's sitting there, nearly dead. A young cowgirl goes past. She offers him some yogurt, and he goes, yes, please. I don't know if they say yes, please. Drinks the yogurt. His disciples are shocked. Siddhartha has gone back to the life of luxury. A yogurt drink. Yeah? Nip up to Aldi and get one, yeah. A yogurt drink. And they're disgusted. And his 5 main disciples leave him. They abandon him. And he's left there, and he starts eating again, building up his strength. And then he remembers once when he was a kid, he was watching his father's fields being ploughed. And he was sitting under what we call a rose apple tree. And this very enjoyable bliss overcame him. And he remembered this experience, and he thought, I was nearer to the truth then than at any other time. And it's probably the first dhyana, maybe second, we don't know, but spontaneously. Yeah? This can happen to many of us without... The thing about dhyana, first dhyana, you may not know you were there. It could have happened in a concert or looking at a sunset, and you didn't have the language to know or the experience to know. That was first dhyana. You know, we often do it, yes? But there we are. So he's in this experience, and he remembers, so he decides to meditate. And he sits there, he's eating properly now, and he meditates, and he learns that if he can let go of the bliss that arises, then a higher dhyana can arise. It's something like this. The attachment, grasping, destroys dhyana. Yeah? If you're hungry for meditation experience, you won't get it. It's one of the little ironies of life. You've got to really be laid back, you know, and focused. Laid back and focused, yeah. But you've got to want it and not want it, you know. So it's a real bugger, you know. It's when it's blasé, when it's really easy, then you can sort of get there when it's not too important for you. But anyway, he learns to let go. The second dhyana rises, third, fourth. He goes up through the dhyanas, letting go all the way. And then they say one night, early in the morning, he sees the morning star, probably Venus. He concentrates on that, and suddenly the process of enlightenment happens. Craving is destroyed. Ignorance is destroyed. Yeah? Hatred is destroyed. And they say 3 things happen on the night of your enlightenment. Let's see if I can remember them. They're not in the notes. 1, you see your past lives. And he sees loads of them. He remembers names. You know, in this life I was this Brahmin, I was this, yeah. The second one, you see the process of karma. It's very hard to see karma. He only sees it when he's virtually enlightened. It's very hard to see karma, yeah? And he sees the process that when people behave badly, they get poor rebirths. When they behave well, they get better rebirths. And just in everyday life, karma works. It's, you know, Tarapalta talked about it last week, didn't he? It's the law of the universe. Sadly, the universe is fair. I hate it. You behave badly, bang, you get it. You know, the little ones, you might escape those, but not the big ones. You know, what I like is mercy, which has got nothing to do with karma. You go, oh, I was horrible. It's all right, I'm merciful, you're in, you know. Sorry, that was God in heaven and all that. But, you know, karma doesn't have mercy. But if you do good things, like meditation, it's very, very good. So he sees past lives, he sees the workings of karma, and I love this third one, and he knows he's a Buddha. That's the last thing that happens on the night of your enlightenment. You know you're a Buddha. And then for weeks, he just absorbs this experience. He sits under various trees. And it's interesting that enlightenment is outside of time, but it's almost like you need time for it to take place in. It's strange. So for about 7 weeks, he sits under 7 different trees, just absorbing the experience. And there's various myths there that happen, you know. I won't go into them, but there we are. Yeah. But yeah, I just thought this. We're doing well. I just thought this. Somebody getting enlightened, it's not a great cinematic opportunity, is it? Really. Day 3 hasn't moved. You know. So, and the tale needs to be retold. So we get the attack of Mara. Yeah, who is Mara? You know, here today, gone tomorrow. Who is Mara? Mara is this sort of fiend that doesn't want you to make spiritual progress. And I say this, I've said this so many times here, if you've ever given up smoking, you've met Mara. Yeah? You know, that battle, that battle. And then you get a couple of weeks without cigarettes. It's really good. And week 5, you go, I've done it. And Mara pops on and goes, you did so well. I'm so proud of you. Why don't you just smoke one and show how you broke it? That's a good idea. You know, sorry, I see recognition here. And you smoke that one, and Mara immediately changes and goes, you've ruined everything. You might as well finish the rest of the pack, you know. Why is Mara so good? Because it's you. Mara is you. He's got access to all your personality, your memory, everything, yeah? And so Mara doesn't want you to make any spiritual progress. And so in the myth, Mara sends in his demons. That's why I've been building weapons for tomorrow's play, yeah. And they attack all these monsters, and they come and they throw weapons at him and fire arrows. And as they all approach the Shakyamuni's, Siddhartha's aura, they turn to flowers. There's symbolism here. This is hatred. It's getting transformed into love. That's fantastic. Didn't work. Mara sends in 3 beautiful daughters. Wow. I'd have lost at this point. And they're dancing very erotically and all the rest, and it's good. You know, this is lust, this is greed. Do you remember I said greed, hatred, delusion? They have to be destroyed. This is greed. Wow, they're fantastic. What does the Buddha do? He visualizes them in old age. 1 tooth. Hair fallen out, yeah? And they are vanquished, yes? Great, so that is greed. So the third is Mara comes in himself to do the job properly, and he comes in as a lawyer. Who the hell do you think you are? What right do you have to sit here? They call it the Vajrasana, the diamond throne of enlightenment. You know, it's a mythical thing, but you're sitting on. Who do you think you are? Yeah? And this is doubt. In Buddhism, we've got a great word, vicikitsa. Vicikitsa. And a German said, oh, it sounds like bichikitsa. It's nasty. It's a nasty, evil doubt. Doubt is good. I've said this many times before. I had a ladder in Ireland. I doubt that ladder. Recently, I took a chainsaw, cut it to pieces, and put it in the fire. Fantastic. Doubt is good. Some doubts are not good. You know, somebody says, I've just seen this advert. It's you. Look. Your qualifications, it's a great job, your experience, and you go, no, I couldn't do it. You doubt, you know. Doubt is wicked, it's evil, it's destroying, it's contagious. You know, you can spread it in the room. Fortunately, the opposite is contagious. Faith, confidence, Shraddha, it is also, so there we go. So he comes as doubt, you know, who the hell do you think you are? And the Buddha, he just taps the ground. And this mythical being just pops up, this green earth goddess. And she says, I am witness to what he's done in past lives. And she just lists his past lives. Yeah. Now, basically, what Mara has done is he's changed the context. He's taken the Buddha into a false world of reasoning. Why do you deserve it? Who the hell do you think you are? And she takes us back to reality. Yeah? And the Buddha, with confidence, the faith returned, Mara dismissed, gains enlightenment. So that's the mythical aspect of gaining enlightenment. Great, lovely. So he did it. He's absorbing all this. But something, just qualities of the Buddha I wanted to mention. Just the Buddha's ability to give things up. Yeah, it's very hard, you know. I was in a sort of a cult in Croydon for years. The longer you're in, the harder it is to get out. You see these scams. Somebody invests a little bit of money in a scam and they think this doesn't work, but the scammer says, no, you just need to put in more money. And they think, well, I put in, you know, most of them are saying, I better put in more. And you're, you know, in it all goes, you need to write things off. You need to say, I walk away from this. It doesn't work. That's a lot of courage to walk away, yeah? And the Buddha has walked away from a wealthy life, yeah? He had a comfortable life. He walked away from Alara Kalama, Udraka Ramaputra, he walked away, yeah? The ascetic life, he walked away. The fame, the companionship, even the love of his disciples, he walked away. That's a very remarkable person, yeah? Very hard thing to do. So I just mentioned this quality that he had, even before enlightenment, yeah? So, very good, very good. Yes, he's enlightened. He's enlightened. He thinks, Alara Kalama, Ramaputra, I'll go and teach them what I found. Because with wisdom comes enormous compassion. Yeah, compassion is the other side of wisdom, yeah? And he goes off, he thinks of his two teachers, and he goes, no, they're both dead. He knows that. So he then thinks of he knows, yeah? So then he thinks of his 5 ascetic friends. He goes off to find them. And when they see him come, they go, snub him. A lovely word, snub. Lovely little English word. Turn your back on him, you know. Don't talk to him. Don't communicate, you know. He went back to the life of luxury. But as he arrives, they can't resist. Somebody makes a seat for him. They make space for him, you know. And he sits down and he says, you're going to have to listen. I can't remember the exact text, but he's saying to them, you're going to have to listen with fresh ears. These are my words, yeah? Because I have found something new. I have found that which leads to the end of death. Yeah? And he works with these 5. We don't know for how long. You know, one of them goes off begging, brings back food, and they work together. And then one of them, this fellow called Kadanya, gets it. He sees it. And the poor Buddha, you wonder, do Buddhas have passions? Well, the Buddha goes, Kadanya knows. Kadanya knows. And from then on, he became called Kadanya, who knows. And the Buddha must have been delighted. And the only way they can translate it is the Buddha go, Kadanya knows, Kadanya. And all the little devas, the little angels floating around, they go, Kadanya knows. And they shout it to the higher heavens. And the higher heavens, Kadanya knows, Kadanya knows. It goes up through up to the Brahmas, Kadanya knows. The whole planet and the whole world shakes. Kadanya knows. And it is amazing because the Buddha didn't know if it could be taught. He said when he found it, it was like a blind man on a dark night finding a jewel in a heap of dung. That's how likely it is to find enlightenment. And he then decided not to teach. What's the point? What's the point? It was amazing I found it. And I just sit here and enjoy it. And then this mythical Brahma turns up, Brahma Sahampati, he says, please, there are some with just a little dust on their eyes. For these people, teach. And then the Buddha has this vision of lotuses. And in India, the lotuses, what's amazing, they grow in the most stinking places. You'll see an old bicycle wheel in this stinking pond, then this immaculate lotus sitting there. Nothing can touch it. Nothing. You throw dirty water on it, it falls off and it's immaculately clean instantly, yeah? And he said, but some of the lotuses actually flower under the water. This is true. Some are buds, some are flowers, yeah? And he has this vision of the world as lotuses, some beneath the water, some above. He decides to teach, and that's why he goes back to the 5. Great. Lovely. And they all get enlightened. That's not bad. I say that because I remember coming across this idea in Buddhism that the Buddha wasn't a great teacher and he had to become better. Rubbish! His beginning is 5 out of 5. It doesn't get better than that, you know. I tell you that. I got passion and upset there. I had to try and work on a whole Buddhist center and say, no, what you were taught wasn't true. You know, he was a good teacher. And to become enlightened, you are a teacher to yourself. A good teacher learns different languages, shapes, stories, images, logic, yeah? And you use all these on yourself. You become a teacher to yourself. So there we go. All right. So, very good. I jumped ahead, didn't I? Yeah. I really did. Continue. So some stories about the Buddha from the Buddha's life. Here we are. Yeah, 15 minutes. Fantastic. I'd like to mention Pasenadi, this king. The Buddha was friends with kings. The Buddha had, everybody could approach the Buddha. Yeah, I'll come to that later. But Pasenadi, his wife gets really keen on the Buddha. And she's going, the Buddha says this, the Buddha says that. And you can imagine Pasenadi going, oh, Buddha this, Buddha that. Yeah, Buddha does everything. And he's not happy, yeah? And she's going, oh, yeah, but the Buddha says. And I'm paraphrasing a bit, but basically this is true. And in the end, he sends off one of his men to go and ask the Buddha questions and comes back. And he's quite impressed. In fact, Pasenadi becomes really impressed with the Buddha before he's met him even. And they become friends. There's lots of meetings. There's a book, I haven't bought it yet, it's an online thing, the meetings between the Buddha and Pasenadi. But they're clearly friends, and the Buddha even likes to ridicule him a bit, yeah? But one day, Pasenadi turns up. Now, you think of pictures of Henry VIII, huge, yeah? It's the duty of a king to be fat, yeah? Fat is wealth. I felt bad about my figure. I was in India. I said to this Dharmacharani, I said, I'm a bit fat. She goes, power. That's not fat, Lalitharat. That is power. Well, I'm going to move here. This is great, But, so Pasenadi has got fat. And in one text it said, Pasenadi, and I found two texts that use this word. Pasenadi had just eaten a bucket of rice. Two texts say a bucket, yeah? And he says, just eat, and he arrives panting and sweating to the Buddha and sits down beside him. And the Buddha is not impressed, and he basically recommends that he eats a cup of rice, yeah? And Pasenadi has got one of his servants there. He says, will you remember this, And Pasenadi goes down to a cup of rice. A time. And his weight goes right down. And he just rejoices in the Buddha that he doesn't just give him spiritual teachings, he also starts Weight Watchers. Sorry, I couldn't resist. That wasn't in the talk. I couldn't resist, sorry. But it is funny. But there's another occasion when, just this taking the mickey, there's this mass murderer, Angulimala. Angulimala means finger necklace. He's got 107 fingers on this necklace from 107 people he's murdered, yeah? This is Angulimala. He's deadly. Armies are frightened of him. The place is in lockdown, yeah? We all know lockdown now, yeah? And everybody's terrified. The Buddha goes out. He says, where is he? Goes out, finds him. They have a little ding-dong. I won't tell you it. But Angulimala is so impressed, becomes a disciple. Great. He shaved his head, wearing the robe, he's practicing with the Buddha's assembly. And poor old Pasenadi turns up with 500 soldiers, And I love this, because you have to be a Sherlock Holmes to read the Pali Canon, yeah? He arrives, he's hunting Angulimala. He needs 500 troops to do it, yeah? And the Buddha says, oh, what is wrong, great king? And he knows damn well what's wrong. Angulimala's sitting behind him. The whole place has been in lockdown. Everybody knows what's going on. This is the story of, not the day of the month, What is wrong, great king? Is Senia Bimbisara, king of Magadha, attacking you? He says, is it the Lichavis of Vesali or some other hostile rulers? It's not quite sarcasm. It's a bit cheeky. The Buddha knows the truth, and he's asking him all these dumb questions. Yeah. It is not that, Lord. Poor Pasenadi. A bandit has appeared in my realm. He goes on murdering people. He wears their fingers as a necklace. I shall never succeed in putting him down, Lord. But great king. So the thing is, this taking the mickey, that's what I like. It's evidence that the Buddha has humour. Yeah. And I've seen it elsewhere. He just, ribs people a little bit. Yeah. Even though he's enlightened. There are passions there. Yeah. But great king, if you saw that Angulimala had shaved off his hair and beard, put on the yellow robe, had gone forth from house life into homelessness, what would you do to him? Lord, We should pay homage. Isn't that great? Poor old Pasenadi. Or we should rise up, or we should invite him to sit down, or we should ask him to accept robes, alms food, lodging, and medicine. Yeah, we should arrange for his protection, his shelter, and his defense. The Blessed One extended his right hand and he said, Great King, there is Angulimala. The king was shocked and alarmed, and his hair stood on end. The Blessed One saw this and said, Do not be afraid, great king. Do not be afraid. There is nothing to fear. Then the king's alarm and fear and horror subsided. Lovely. Okay? The tales all carry on, but I just really like this, yeah? So, and Pasenadi, he rejoices in the Buddha's merits on one occasion. He just goes through all these reasons why he admires the Buddha. And one of them, he just says, I won't read it all, he just says, scholars come. They're brilliant at hair-splitting arguments. They practiced in debate. And they say, we will defeat this Shakyamuni. That's what he's now called. You know, Muni means wise man. The wise one of the Shakyas. Yeah, Shakyamuni. We will defeat him in argument. We will make a statement. And if he argues this way, we have these answers for him. If he answers in that way, we have these answers for him. We will defeat him. Yeah? And Pasenadi says, they go to the monk Gautama, Shakyamuni. He instructs them. These are the critics, the philosophers, yeah? Urges, rouses, and encourages them with talk on the Dharma, the truth. After that, they do not even ask him the question. So how should they refute his theory? In actual fact, they become his disciples. Yeah. So this is just one of the men. He does this great rejoicing in the Buddha's qualities and his Sangha, but that's just one little bit of it. So that was Pasenadi. But one thing the Buddha is amazing for, it's as if he can read your face. He is so perceptive, you know. And poor Ananda, later on Ananda, when he's upset that the Buddha's passing on, he's dying, and Ananda's crying, he just says to Ananda, but Ananda, how many times have I told you that everything that rises must fall? That which comes into being must cease. I've told you this, you know. Poor old Ananda, his cousin, his attack. Ananda's a lovely man. And he's sort of sobbing there, yeah? But contrast that with this. The Buddha's assembly is there, and this crazy woman walks right up to him with a dead baby. Yeah? And I always bloody cry doing this, even in public, sorry. And she says, have you got medicine for my baby? And the Buddha, he must be looking into hell. Yeah? This poor creature, there's one baby in the world, it's hers, and it's dead. That's the whole universe. That's her perception. Yeah? That's it. Her reason for being is gone. She won't accept it's dead. Have you got medicine for my baby? The Buddha looks and he goes, there is medicine for your baby. Oh, bang! You know, he doesn't say, oh, but Kissa goes to me, everything that rises must fall. You know, that was, you know, none of this garbage. Yeah? Yeah, it worked for Ananda, not for Kisagoti. He says, there is medicine. He said, but you have to get it for me. He said, I need this, a mustard seed. Now, I've looked it up. Mustard seeds were the cheapest spice there was in India. Tiny little white seed. You have to beg a mustard seed, and it must come from a house where there was no death. Yeah? And off she goes like a rocket. House to house, you know. Have you mustard seed? Yeah, of course, you can help yourself. You know, has anybody died here? Don't remind us. We've just buried the grandfather. The baby died. Everywhere she goes, you know, somebody has died. And basically, what happens to the poor woman? Everywhere she goes is, she's excited, she's anticipating, and death. Excited, anticipation, death, 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 death. And her perspective goes from her dead baby to others. Yeah? He just widens her perspective and sanity returns. Yeah? And she just takes the dead body to a burning ghat and leaves it there. And she goes off to the Buddha and she kneels before him and says, give me a teaching. Yeah? And he takes her on as a disciple. She gains enlightenment. She wasn't even looking for the truth, you know. She becomes a famous arahat, you know, teacher, and it's just amazing. To me, that's amazing. You know, teaching is never that good, you know. So there we are. God, that one kills me. Sorry. So the Buddha teaches again and again, wandering around northern India. Sorry, where's my hanky? I can't go on. There it is, good. Right, lovely. He goes round, and towards the end of his life, he knows he's dying, so he does a farewell tour. He condenses his teaching down to the Threefold Path, which I'm not giving today, and gives it in 14 different places, many times, and then he collects the assembly for his death. We tend to say parinirvana, which is like supreme enlightenment. Nirvana, okay? Para, supreme, yeah? His supreme enlightenment, he's going to lose his body, yeah? He's going to die. And he's there. 1,250 monks and nuns are there. And I love this bit. They're all there, sitting there in silence. The Buddha is lying between these two sal trees, the blossom falling down. And he says, does anybody have any doubts in the teaching? Silence. Perhaps you're a bit shy, a bit embarrassed, yeah? So if you have doubts, mention it to the person next to you and they'll say it for you. Isn't that brilliant? Talk about understanding humans, you know. Silence. He says the reason there's silence is out of the 1,250, nobody has doubt. The least of you is irreversibly on the path to enlightenment. We call them stream entrants, you know. So there he is, the scene is set. He says, where's Ananda? Ananda's weeping. And Ananda's saying, he is leaving, he who was so kind. And the Buddha says, bring Ananda here, he who was so kind, you know. And this is Ananda. He doesn't say he who was so wise, he who was so powerful, he who was so kind. This is how he sums up the Buddha, you know. And Ananda comes and he says again, yeah, I told you, Ananda, everything that rises falls, you know, come on, yeah. Get it, you know. And after his death, Ananda does get enlightened. He's a bit slow on that. That's one bit I bloody love. I don't know why. The Buddha sometimes can be a bit, it seems like he's a bit short-tempered. This is a mystery to me. He's enlightened. He's all compassion and love. But one day a whole bunch of young monks turn up and the noise they're making is phenomenal because they're meeting their old mates, they're unpacking, where's the bedding here, blah, blah, crash. And the Buddha says, what's all the noise? They sound like fishermen unloading the catch. And he says, this is the new monks. He says, get rid of them. What? They're banished. They're banished. Again, Brahma Humpasy pops out and says, please, come on. Some traders see them say, please, come on. And he lets them back. But you've got the Buddha with this. I don't get it. Maybe there's a little bit of human still left there. Yeah? But here, he's lying there, and this monk is standing in front of him, fanning him. Yeah? And the Buddha says, get out the way. And Ananda, he says, that's a bit abrupt. Lord, why did you speak so roughly to this? And the Buddha just said, look, the Devas know I'm dying. The Devas are like angels. The Devas have come from all over the world to see my passing, yeah? They're packed. There's so many Devas here. You cannot push a horsehair between two of them. That's how many Devas there are here. And all they see is the back of this monk. I love to think, you know, and all they see is this monk's ass, you know. Sorry, but, you know, and they're all complaining. So the poor fella has to stand aside so they can see. I love that. I don't know why I pick up on these little bits, but I just love them. And then, so it's happening. He's dying. And then this fella turns up, Subhadra, goes, hey, what's happening? I said, the Buddha's passing. In front of her, he says, I've got a spiritual problem. And the Buddha says, what is it? And they're going, not now, not now. The Buddha's dying. And the Buddha says, no, it's all right, let him in. Yeah. And Subhadra says, and it's quite interesting, because we actually get one of the best teachings ever from this. We get one of the best teachings ever. He says, I see all these holy men, these have this teaching, these have this teaching, all these. What's the truth? What's the way? And the Buddha says, where you see the Eightfold Path That's where you see the true Brahmin. They didn't have the word Buddha, so he called it the true Brahmin. Where you see the Eightfold Path, that's where you have the true Brahmin. So if you met a Catholic priest who's practicing the Eightfold Path, he's got it. Yeah? A Muslim, if he's got the Eightfold Path, he's got it. It's what you do is what counts. Can you see the broadness of it? Yeah? It's, are you practicing the Eightfold Path? That's what counts. Not, we've got it, you haven't. Yeah? It's totally... And we get this from Subhadra, you know. And lovely. So that's pretty well it. The Buddha comes up. He's summarized his teaching down to the threefold path. He gets it down to about 2 sentences. He says, everything that is subject to decay, yeah? Or just push that door to, Paul, could you? Thank you. Just, if I can hear the noise from here. Lovely. Oh. You see why the Buddha liked quiet, can't you? Yeah. Yeah, get rid of that. Careful. So he gets it down to 2 sentences. Everything that is subject to decay. Start again. All composite things are subject to decay with mindfulness strive. So he's saying everything that comes together, everything that's made up, will fall apart. With mindfulness strive. Okay? What's going on here? He's saying if we really, really could see that everything comes to pieces in our world, yeah, we get less passionate about all these stupid things, you know? Not too worried about having a great pension scheme at the end that we don't even collect because we died early earning it, you know? That happened to my best friend. You know, everything comes apart so that the craving just breaks down. If you can destroy craving, you are enlightened, yeah? You know, so he's saying that. So this is the thing. If you can see that everything comes apart, and you don't just see it with here, that's not good enough. It has to go right down into your guts. You see it with your guts. It is you. The insight is you. You know, and I remember this little grave outside Mullingar Pool in Ireland. Yeah, it was 1777. This poor father had lost his 17-year-old girl. Yeah, and on the grave it said. All things part. What's it? Life must pass, and all things show it. I thought so once, but now know it. Yeah, I mean, imagine your 17-year-old daughter, the beauty, you know, and impermanence was an idea for him, and now it's reality. Yeah, yeah, and that's what we're doing with our spiritual life, taking these brilliant ideas and getting them to drop down into our guts. So. All the things that are everything that comes to is made up, will come apart. Be mindful and strive. I'll say no more on there because we've just run over. Then he goes into the meditation states. He goes up through the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana, all the way up to the 8th. Then 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, first jhana. Then 2, 3, 4, and dies. That's it. He's gone. And the arahats, who are enlightened, they're fine. The rest of them, and Ananda screams. So that is the life of the Buddha. There's councils afterwards. They fortunately, Ananda had the most amazing memory, so we're grateful to him, you know, for memorizing all this stuff. And that's the talk. That's it. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely. Great. Good.